Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
So I want to get started because it was a 43-day government shutdown, and I want to ask what, if anything, did the Republican Party get out of this?
Really, the question is, what did the Democrats get out of it? They're the ones who caused the shutdown. They voted over a dozen times not to open the government. And so they went through all of this, put all this pain on the American people. You know, tens of millions of Social Security recipients, who are getting slower services. You had airplane flights canceled, air traffic controllers, military, vets not getting paid. And so the Democrats went through all of that for 43 days and got nothing for it yesterday. Still, even at the vote that they had last night, 99% of Democrats still voted to keep the government shut down and hurting people in this country. And so the real question is, what do the Democrats get out of it?
What's the Republican messaging coming out of the shutdown?
I think really the truth of the matter for the Republicans is we wanted to keep the government open all the time and stop all this suffering that was going on. The Democrats voted 13 times during the Biden administration to do exactly what the Republicans wanted to do last night, which was to keep the government open. And they refused to do it last night. And what we saw in the last week is Democrats admitting that they were using the shutdown as political leverage. And so I think it just kind of wore out.
And Republicans have said multiple times that the Democrats were holding the party hostage, holding the government hostage with this shutdown. But Republicans could have also voted to include these subsidies, which would have reopened the government. Why was that something Republicans weren't willing to come to the table on?
Because we knew that was going to be a negotiating, something that parties were going to negotiate later. Look, what the Democrats really did with the shutdown is tried to get a $1.5 billion bribe and force it down the president and the Republicans' throats to do all sorts of non-health care related spending when the real issues were different. So they made a conscious decision to put the country through a shutdown, and that shutdown ended last night because of President Trump and because of the Republicans.
And I want to ask, too, because Democrats failed to get these ACA subsidy extensions into that bill. There is a promise to vote on these subsidies. That was kind of some of the things that came out of this. For those Wisconsinites who will see premiums skyrocket in Wisconsin if there's no extension, what do you say to those individuals right now?
What I say to folks out there, I'm from here, so I including my family and lots of, what I say to people is we ought to be talking about healthcare, quality of healthcare, and cost of healthcare. That ought to be a national issue, but not under the gun of a shutdown, which the Democrats forced us into. So we look forward to that discussion. And already, unfortunately, Senator Baldwin, Democrat Senator Baldwin, has said that they will use the January 30th deadline as leverage again. After all this pain they put the country through, they want to do it again. So I think more politics is coming.
Well, and I've talked with Congressman Stile multiple times about this topic. He says that there needs to be reform in this ACA subsidies. What kind of reform would that look like? Is that something the party as a whole would want to look at?
I think both parties got to look at that. The truth of the matter is we were promised all sorts of savings with Obamacare and didn't get it. There are skyrocketing costs into the program. So what we need to do is stand back and say, how do people get better health care at a better cost than they're getting right now? I think that's going to end up being the discussion that Congress has to have. The Republicans are ready to have it.
Do you think that this shutdown cemented health care as a top issue for the 2026 midterm elections?
I think it's a top issue anyway. Look, you always go through these election cycles. We certainly heard a lot about, of course, immigration and taxes and debt and things like that in the election last year. So I think health care is always going to be an issue, but it's one that the parties ought to be willing to discuss. Unfortunately, the Democrats wanted to use the shutdown to not force a discussion, but force trillions of extra dollars into a system that's not working very well for people.
Well, how will Republicans address it?
Well, I think we'll see. I think we'll see. They certainly want to find cost savings, but Republicans want to find cost savings, but they also want to find better service and better health care for people. Just assuming that because Obamacare is there and it's the default system right now, and so it must be good, is not the right approach. We ought to be willing to talk about how to do things differently and better. And
I want to ask you about a poll, too. A KFF poll found that 74% of Americans, including 50% of Republicans, support extending the ACA tax credits Is this a losing issue for Republicans right now?
No, I don't think health care is a losing issue for Republicans at all. In fact, I think it's an opportunity for us to talk more. I mean, remember, Obamacare got forced down people's throats, not because they wanted it that way, but because you had the President, Obama, and you had the Democrats. It wasn't the model necessarily that people wanted. So let's have that discussion. I think it's a good one to have.
But people have come to rely on these subsidies. And so in the interim, what would happen here?
Yeah, I don't know that much will happen in the interim, really. I think that, we'll see if there's a deal that the Republicans and Democrats can sit down. The Republicans have been willing to sit down and talk about it forever. It's the Democrats who forced us into this shutdown situation. So we have an opportunity here to talk and have a national discussion about health care, and I suspect we will.
And I want to ask one last question, which I also asked the chair of the Democratic Party here in Wisconsin, which is who won this shutdown?
Oh, I think the Republicans won the shutdown, the issue of the shutdown. The Democrats definitely lost the shutdown. There's no question about that in my mind. Look, they went all in and shut down the government for 43 days and hurt hundreds of millions of people in the process. So to me, the Democrats lost the shutdown, but the American people and the people of Wisconsin lost the shutdown because of the Democrats' intransigence.
And what's the message for Republicans specifically to Wisconsinites right now?
I think we could have avoided the 43 days that we just went through. The people laid off, the people put on furlough, $7 billion of costs to the travel industry, military veterans, everyone senior citizens, low-income people. They all took a hit because the Democrats wanted to shut down the government like they were that they were unwilling to do during the Biden administration. It was nakedly political. There's no question about that. Question is, do they try to pull it again?
Wonderful. Well, that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with us.
It's good to be here.